Hello and welcome to another Aquarium Online Academy. Today is a very special episode. We are going to be heading out to the open ocean and looking for some really awesome animals. So, to get us started before we head out into the ocean, I'm just going to introduce myself real quick. My name is Lourdes, and today I'm going to be our naturalist today. So I'm going to be explaining some of the really awesome stuff we'll be seeing out there. But of course, I'm not going to be alone on our boat. I have Captain Cole behind the screen and First Mate Sonia also helping out. Now, if you want to ask any questions or even make observations, share something you know about anything we're seeing, you can interact by texting live at 562-286-1838. And if you're watching after the fact, today is November 6th at around 3 p.m. You could also email us at live@lbaop.org. We would still love to hear any questions you have, even if it's not live, and we'll try to answer those questions as soon as we get to them. Now, before we head out into the water, I'm going to just talk a little bit about what we typically do when we whale watch. So when we go out into the ocean, we like to sometimes have a hat, right, if it's a really sunny day, and even I think I heard conditions are a little windy, so when we head out to our step off and grab my so I don't get cold out there. We also might want to use something that helps us get a closer look, like binoculars. So if you have any of that stuff lying around, feel free to gather it, and then we'll be ready to go on our whale watch. All right? Sweet. I'm going to Captain Cole's get us out into the water here in a little bit. All right. Looks like we are heading out. We got sunny conditions, and it's a little windy. So I got my jacket to keep me nice and braced against the cold. Now, as we're out here, we're going to be looking for a few different signs so that we can find these animals. But what are we looking for? Can you guess what we're looking for out here? Yeah, maybe whales. Ideally whales. I'm just going to fix my hair here real quick. So 1 second. These windy conditions aren't going to protect my hair completely. All right, let me step off real quick. I'm going to fix something. But whales are one of them. But here's the thing. We're out in the water. So any animal we get to see is going to be equally awesome. And we'll talk about them as we see them. So we're going to all keep an eye out. Me, Cole, and Sonia. But also keep an eye out yourself, right? So right now, we're over this lovely water. And the thing about Long Beach here, where the Aquarium of the Pacific is there is a break wall that we have to get past. Now, the specific gate in the break wall we're going to go through is called the Queen's Gate. And it's called the Queen's Gate because here in Long Beach, we have a very, very special ship called the Queen Mary. So it's named after that. So we'll be heading out past the break wall, and once we're past the break wall, we'll be in the open ocean, where we will be able to find some really awesome animals. So what are we looking for? The best way to tell there's an animal somewhere is we're looking for 3 things, all right? We're looking for splashing. That indicates activity. We're also looking for bird activity. Birds sometimes let us know that there's something going on, like a bait ball or a feeding frenzy that might attract other animals. And, of course, we're looking for whales. So we're looking for one very awesome thing called a whale spout. So if we see water spray out, that might be a sign of a whale. All right, I think Captain Cole saw something. Let's see. Let's go get a closer look at that animal. And I wonder what it is. We're going really fast. We spotted it, and we're going. Whoa, I'm going to step to the side. What is that? Does that look like a whale? That doesn't look like a whale to me. But it is something very cool. I will tell you that. If you don't already know, this fish right here is a mola mola. Now, this is a fish, not a mammal. So they use their gills to breathe underwater. Now, why is spotting this fish so fascinating? Well, we don't really see them that much, right? They will tend to kind of dive deep into the water to look for food or even to get protections from predators like sharks and sea lions. But despite that, the mola mola does come up, and we'll sometimes see this little top fin pop out, and sometimes they even kind of like lay on their side. And they're a very awesome fish. because, one, again, they're hard to spot. We don't see them that often, but they do come to our coast and even into our kelp forest for a few different reasons. One, food, right? They sometimes get their food deeper in the water, but they also sometimes come closer to the coast to be able to get some food, like sea jellies or other plankton. There's another reason why they might come into our kelp forests here in California, and that is for our cleaner fish that we have. Because the thing about mola molas is they are probably the most parasite-ridden fish out there. They have a lot of parasites on that thick skin of theirs. I'm going to step aside so we can get a good look at that mola mola. And these parasites can get a little annoying, so to help them kind of they'll kind of come into some kelp forests or anywhere where there's some fish that might be able to help our friend out to kind of wash off. Now, again, this is a bony fish. They're actually the heaviest bony fish. Can you guess how heavy this fish is? How heavy do you think that is? Do you think it's like 10 pounds? 100 pounds? Well, some of the heaviest mola molas are 4,922 pounds. That's a heavy fish. And they have really, really thick skin. And this actually kind of serves as a protection for them, right? If I'm a shark just trying to come around and I take a bite of something that's really, really hard to chew, I'll probably want to spend my energy elsewhere. I'm not going to bother trying to bite through this really thick skin of the mola mola. I'm going to go look for an easier fish with thinner skin. So despite the fact that this friend doesn't really have the most apparent defenses, it's still it survives out in the water pretty well on its own. And they do tend to hang out in the open ocean, so the best time we really spot them is out here on our watches, where we might get lucky and see them. Because again, we don't really see them that too much on the surface, and they don't really school like other fish. So when we get the chance to see a mola mola, despite the fact that it's not a whale that we're trying to look for, or even a shark or a dolphin, it's still a really cool animal to spot just because we don't really see them that much. Now, that's our mola mola. We're going to head back out into the water, see what else we can spot, alright? So let's keep an eye peeled. Remember, we're looking for a few different things, right? Do you remember what I mentioned? Bird activity, splashing, and a whale spout. Ooh, I think Sonia spotted something. Was it a whale spout? Do we have whales? Let's see. Let's get a closer look, alright? Keep your eyes peeled. I see water, and I see, ooh, I think I see something in the distance. Look at that. Aw, it's like a little heart. So, we're seeing a whale spout, meaning it comes from what? A whale! Exactly! We found our whale. But, what kind of whale did we find? Can you guess? Name off a few whales if you don't want to guess. Maybe you just know a whole bunch of whales you want to share. Right? Let's see if we can get a closer look. Alright. Perfect. Can you guess what this whale is right here? Yes! It's a gray whale! Exactly! And we can tell for a few different reasons, but let's take a quick gander at this video. I want us to make some observations. There's something really interesting that happened there that we're going to talk about. But what are you noticing about the gray whale? So he's coming up. We're getting that whale spout. You notice the colors on my gray whale? Does it look like one solid color? No. I'm seeing some white spots, maybe a bit of yellow. And of course we see that blowhole that we'll talk a little bit about. But I'm sure the one thing you're wondering about is, what is all this brown stuff coming out? Well, that brown stuff right there is mud. Why would a gray whale have mud? Well, because of what it eats, where it hunts for its food. But before we get into where it eats, we're going to talk about its teeth, right? Some of the best ways we can tell what an animal eats is by looking at their teeth. And gray whales are part of a very special whale family called ballenes. So I'm going to step off real quick because we actually have some baleen that I will be able to show you. Now these aren't technically teeth, but for simplicity's sake, we'll call them teeth. So right here I have some baleen. Check that out. What do you notice? Does it look a little bit like something? Maybe something we have on ourselves? Kind of looks like hair, right? All these really thin fibers. Wow. Baleen, while it serves kind of like teeth for our gray whales and other baleen whales, is made out of keratin. Now, keratin is what we have also in our hair, right? We have it in our hair, our nails, and even our skin. Now, this keratin is what makes up this baleen. And again, I'm going to kind of turn around so we can kind of get this look. Now, what do you think this is good for? Do you think this is good for eating big fish? Probably not, huh? I don't think so. I think it might be a little difficult to get a really big fish through here, right? So it's probably going to eat something smaller. And it's going to have this very specific fiber-like teeth again because it is a filter feeder. So it needs to filter through substrate to get to its food. And that is because of the type of food it gets. Gray whales tend to eat from the ocean floor. They eat these little tiny animals called amphipods. So think like tiny little shrimp, but they're not exactly shrimp. Here's a perfect visual. So look at how this gray whale is going to the bottom and kind of scooping up all this dirt because again, those amphipods, oh my goodness, excuse me, amphipods are hiding in the mud. So the gray whales have to go underneath and grab basically a mouthful of mud, and it's going to filter out the mud so that way it can scrape all the food off of its baleen and its mouth and eat the animals left behind. So I wonder if we could go back to that video where we saw some of that mud come out of its mouth, just to kind of show us again what that looks like. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Perfect. So watch again. There's a blowhole. And then there's all that mud because it is trying to get rid of the mud. It doesn't want to eat the mud. It's not going to do much for it. But the yummy amphipods it eats are in that mud. Now, there's another reason why they also go against the floor. So they're mostly eating, but there's kind of a second beneficial tactic, right? Because the thing about gray whales, and we're going to go back to the skin, the way it looks, is that they have two things on their skin, right? So you probably already know that they have barnacles. That's some of the stuff we're seeing here. But they also have whale lice. Can you believe that? Whales also having lice? Now, they're not the same lice we get here on land because they're not exactly true lice. Oh, here's a perfect visual. Now, it might be a little hard. We're seeing a lot of barnacles. We're also seeing all these whale lice. And the really awesome thing about these lice is that they actually are very specific to their host. So, in a way, they help us as well as the whale. Here, so now we got a little closer look. You can kind of see them a little better. They're scattered throughout here, but they're going to look like kind of like little bugs, right? They don't get that big. I want to say about a few centimeters, 1 to 2 centimeters. But these lice, again, are very host specific. So they help scientists actually track some whales and the way they move because we can tell what whale it is just by the lice on them. Now, of course, lice are annoying, and they can be annoying for the gray whale, but they also do help them with getting rid of dead skin. Their lice will actually eat away at their dead skin. Of course, too much gets annoying. So what they do is they do two things to help kind of clean off some of them. One of them is what we saw, the way they eat is by kind of rubbing against the ground, right? By rubbing against the ground, they're going to loosen up any amphipods that are down there or that interact with the ground as well. They're not going to be able to hold on very tight. And another way is by breaching. But what is breaching? Can you guess? It's like when whales go, woo! Like that, right? When they jump out of the water. That force that they used to jump out of the water kind of washes them in a way, right? Us, when we get clean, we like to get under a shower, in a bath, and use the water to rub off on our skin. But can whales do that? No. Why not? Yeah, well, one, they don't have hands, right? But two, they live in the water. So how are they going to use the water to clean themselves? Well, they do that by, again, breaching, by jumping out. And by jumping out, the force of the water kind of helps clean off any loose barnacles or lice or anything on them. So in a way, when they breach, it's one way for them to kind of take like a quick shower, right? All right, let's see. So we talked about their teeth. We talked a bit about how they eat. Oh, I almost forgot. How do we see the gray whales? Where do they live? Well, gray whales are a migratory species. So they migrate all the way up from, I believe, Alaska. Yes, all the way up from Alaska and all the way down to Baja California in Mexico. And they do this every year. It is a really, it's not 1 mile, it's not 30 miles. It is around 14,000 miles round trip. So they travel that whole distance, again, all the way up from Alaska, all the way up north, all the way down to the warm waters of Baja. But why would they do that? Those are some awesome guesses, scientists. Well, if you said that they do it to have babies, you'd be correct. They like to give birth in warmer waters and also to mate so that they can find a partner and hopefully have more babies. And they'll go do that in the warmer waters. But why not just always hang out in Baja where it's nice and warm? Well, there's not a lot of their food down there. So they prefer the colder waters because there's actually a lot more food for them in those colder waters. That's why we see them up in Alaska, usually during the summers. And then when it gets too cold and too dark, they'll start traveling down, again, making that really, really long trip all the way down to Baja. Well, they'll enjoy the sun and have some babies, right? And then eventually the pod might move back up towards Alaska as summer comes again. But sometimes the mom and baby will stay a little bit behind because the baby kind of needs to fatten up a little bit because it's really, really cold up there, right? Awesome. So we got to talk about some awesome gray whales. Let's see what else we can spot. So we saw a fish so far, and we saw a baleen whale. I wonder what else we could see. Ooh, Cole said he spotted something out in the water, some bird activity. Ooh, let's go see what the birds found. Ooh, do you see anything yet? Not yet. Everybody, hold your horses. This is the most exciting thing we have right here. Do you know what this animal is right here? Yes, an orca. An orca, an mammal and a type of whale, right? You might have heard their other name, killer whales. And we do sometimes get them down here in Southern California. But it's not super common, so when we do get to see them, we get really excited because they're a rare sight and an awesome animal. So let's talk about them, yeah? So, orcas. What are we noticing? I'm going to step to the side. What are we noticing about my orca friend right here? We have some fins. They have a dorsal fin at the top, right? Right there. Right here. What about the colors? What do you notice about the colors? Yeah, they're black and white. But why would they be black and white? Yeah, maybe to kind of hide better in the water. We like to call that counter shading, right? So they're dark on top because if you're above an orca and you're looking down into the water, they're going to be really hard to see because the deeper in the water you go, the darker it gets. But if you're below an orca and you're looking up, what's above the water? The sun. Yeah, exactly. The sun. So it's going to be a lot lighter. That's why they have that white underbelly to better hide in the lighter top where the sun's coming down. Now, I had mentioned that they're whales, and there's a very special type of whale that we like to call toothed whales, and that's because they have actual teeth, right? So balines don't have teeth, they have something called baleen, but our toothed whales have actual teeth, right? So they are, I believe, where are they on the size scale? They are, okay, let me redirect. So we know they're whales. Did you also know that dolphins are whales? They are. Again, they're those toothed whales. Now, orcas are actually the largest dolphin. Oh, perfect. Look at those teeth. You can really see those teeth really well. Notice how they're kind of like sharp. What do we think they eat if they have sharp teeth? Do we think they eat kelp? No, I don't think they eat kelp. What about fish? Some of them probably do, right? Maybe even they might eat other marine mammals, right? Like seals and sea lions. So, there's a few different types of orcas, right? We like to call them a few different population names. One of them being resident orcas. And there's a few different type of resident orcas. So resident orcas are the ones who tend to stay in one area most of their lives. And we typically see them here in the Pacific, usually in the Pacific Northwest. So think like Washington, right? Alaska. Typically those that we find will mostly eat fish like salmon, right? Or whatever else fish they can find. So if you enjoy a good salmon, consider that your twin. They like salmon too. And again, they also do like to eat marine mammals. Of course, we're going to see that more in our transient populations. So our transient populations are the ones who tend to migrate, right? And we see a lot of them here. The ones we see here in California are going to be those transient orcas that travel all the way from the north down to the south. Sometimes we even get some that live in the eastern tropical Pacific. And they'll actually come over, visit us for a bit, get some food, and then leave back to their homes. Now, here in Southern California, especially here in Long Beach, we specifically see one pod, California 51. That's the one we typically see. Again, they are a transient population, so they migrate. We only see them when they're migrating. I'm going to step to the side. Oh my gosh, look at this amazing video. And you can kind of see that counter shading in action. See how they kind of disappear the lighter it is? Aren't they so cute? An amazing animal. For all the things I was mentioning, but also for something else, they are a very intelligent animal. And we see that in the way of their family structures, in the way they hunt, and in the way they feed. Orcas tend to make sure that their whole pod is fed, right? So we're seeing right here an orca pod. They like to hang out in groups. Now, did you know that orcas are matriarchal? So that means that typically the biggest female is the one who's in charge. So the biggest or the oldest will typically be in charge, and she'll kind of lead around the pod, right? For our transients, that's that migratory path. For our residents, that's just around looking for food. Now, the way they feed is very interesting, right? But it's in the way that they make sure everybody's fed. And even sometimes what we've been seeing is that orcas will actually bring stuff up to human divers. They'll kind of bring us up like octopus or a fish, and they'll just like give it to us and then kind of back off and watch us. And that's how we know they are so intelligent, because they're kind of observing us the same way we observe them. Isn't that amazing? All right, let's see. So we talked about our different populations. They are super rare. We talked about the pod we typically see down here in Southern California when we go out on our whale watches. And we also just talked about how they hunt and they feed, as well as their family structures. So we talked about a few awesome animals, but we still got a little bit of time. I wonder what else we could find, all right? Let's see. So we're going to say goodbye to our orcas. Goodbye, orcas. Have a safe trip up to wherever you're going, and let's keep an eye out for something else. Now, it is the open ocean. There's a whole bunch of different animals out here in the open ocean, so we can see anything. We've already seen 2 types of marine mammals. We've seen a fish, one you may have not have seen before. But I wonder what's next. Alright, I'm gonna go over here. Whoa, what is this? I'm gonna step to the side. What is that? Can you recognize that? What kind of animal do you think this belongs to? That is a tail fluke belonging to a humpback whale. A humpback whale. So that means we found 3 types of whales today. 2 of them being baleen, because that second baleen is this one right here. So let's see if we can get a good view of our humpback whale. Captain Cole is going to steer the boat so we can try to get a better view. But as we do that, oh my gosh, look at that. So remember how I had talked about breaching in gray whales? Well, humpbacks do it too. And this is what breaching looks like, right? They're again kind of just flopping out of the water, and it'll come down for a big splash. Do you remember what I said that kind of helps them do? Yeah, it kind of helps them to clean themselves. Totally. So gray whales do it. Humpbacks do it. You'll typically see it in any animal that's able to get out of the water, whether they mean to or not. Now, we saw our grays. There's actually something very distinct about humpbacks I want to talk about. It's this right here. Do you see? Do you notice something about this? The flippers. Are they pretty short, like our orcas, our grays? Or are they really long? Yeah, they're really, really long. And that's how we know that this is a humpback whale. These long flippers, and also some other stuff. What do you notice about my humpback? I'm going to step to the side. Does it look like my gray whale? Not completely. The way its back is a little different too. Do you see that? Does it look like a straight back? No. It's kind of very curved. Not super curved, but it's pretty curved. And again, that's how we know we're looking at a humpback. They got a curved back. They have long flippers. And they also have these really, really distinct bumps all throughout their body. Now, I want to highlight these ones down here on the flippers. It helps them to kind of maneuver a little faster, because humpbacks are actually really, really awesome predators. And they also tend to hunt in groups, much like orcas. They use this really awesome technique called bubble nets. But what is a bubble net? Well, it's what it sounds like. It's a net made out of bubbles, essentially. Now, it's not going to completely hold the fish, but it's going to trick the fish. So some humpbacks will dive deep down, and they'll start rotating around, and they'll release bubbles from their blowhole and make this kind of wall of bubbles. And we call that a bubble net, and that helps to trap fish inside, because it confuses the fish, and all the other humpbacks and any other animal up there trying to take advantage will kind of go in and eat the food that's trapped. Now again, look at that. Do you remember what that's called again? That in their mouth? Yeah, baleen. Because they are also filter feeders. Now, I had mentioned it and I forgot to expand on it. That blowhole. What is the blowhole? Is it just a random hole on their head? Grab your nose. Fantastic. To the top of your head. That's basically a blowhole. It's like a nose, but it's just moved all the way up, so they use that to expel water, right? And to also take a deep breath in, because they are mammals. They have to breathe air just like us. Alright, so it looks like we're just out of time. So we're going to head back out. We're going to enjoy this last video of some whales just before we head back in to the safety of the harbor. Look at that. Ooh, we got to see those baleens in action. Again, remember how I mentioned how we want to look for bird activity? There's that bird activity. That's how we knew these humpbacks were out here, because we just saw a whole bunch of birds kind of diving down and flying around and landing. So that's usually an indicator that there's food. And where there's food, there's going to be animals. And chances are we'll get some whales, right? Like our humpbacks that we got to see today. All right, we're going to head back into the safety of our bay. We're going to enter back through Queen's Gate and dock our boat. So that is it for our Aquarium Online Academy today. Thank you so much for joining us on this virtual whale watch. We got to see a lot of really awesome animals, and now hopefully you learned a little bit something new about any of these animals, or maybe you learned about a new animal. All right, that's going to be it. Again, if you have any questions or observations you still want to share, don't worry, you can still email us at live@lbaop.org. Other than that, I will see you the next time. Bye!